How's everybody doing? My name's Danny and you are watching the Midlife Mechanics channel. Today we're talking about your typical youth Chinese ATV. There are millions of these out there. There are good things about them and there are bad things about them. This particular one, this is a really sad story. This like breaks my heart. Neighbor of mine wanted to buy one of these for his kids for Christmas. Well, he finds one on Marketplace. He goes to look at it. The guy, he didn't ride it, but the guy that was selling it rode it around the yard. He's like, okay, everything's great. Loaded it up, brought it home, kind of hid it away from his kids until Christmas. Well, he gives it to the kids for Christmas, breaks it out, and he said it starts and dies. You can't keep it running. So yeah, that's really sad, man, messing the kids' Christmas up like that. But anyway, he called me and told me he's having trouble and asked me if I'd help. I told him, of course, I'll see what I can do. So what he says is he can get it started, but he can't keep it running. So we're gonna have to take a look. All right, so let's turn the key on, get this thing started if it will start, and see what's going on. All right, let's see. All right, fuel's on, choke's on, key on off, that's on. Let's give it a rip. Okay, we've seen this before. Okay, we've seen this before. It will run, it runs pretty good as long as I leave it on full choke. It's warm in this garage. This thing should run for 30 seconds with the choke on. You should be able to start taking it off. As soon as I take the choke off, nothing. It won't even think about accelerating. I've seen this before. Usually what happens is the jets inside the carburetor get clogged. When you put the choke on, when you close that choke flap, it creates high vacuum inside that carburetor, and believe me, it will pull the fuel through. So what we're going to have to do is pull this carburetor off of here and get it apart and see what's going on. I'm going to do the carburetor disassembly and cleaning on camera. I'm going to do the carburetor removal off camera, but I will point out what we need to take off in order to take it off, so you have an idea in case you haven't done it before. So let's get this lifted up and get started. Okay, here we are. We're looking at the carburetor. There is a clamp right here that needs to be loosened from the other side, and this pulls back. There are, I hope you can get this in the camera, there is a bolt right here and a bolt right here that has to be taken out. All right, let's move over to the other side. All right, here you can see I hope I'm getting that in there all right. Here's the second bolt. This is the fuel line right here. It's got a little squeeze clamp. That's got to come off. Make sure you shut your fuel valve off so it doesn't leak everywhere. And there's one little overflow hose on the bottom we got to take out. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get that apart, and we'll start the disassembly. Okay, one thing I failed to mention earlier is you have to disconnect the top and get the throttle cable and slide out of there before you can get this carburetor in your hand. So you just loosen that, and boom, there it is. Okay, so I got the camera all set up and I got ready to show you guys how to disassemble it. And look at what these son of a bitches did. These are the screws that you take out to take the bowl off. You notice they have no head on it. There's no way to put a screwdriver on it. And by looking at it, I can tell these are break-off bolts. Break-off bolts are made in such a way when you tighten them and get them tight, the head snaps off. And they're made for making things tamper-proof. So I'm going to have to figure out a way to get these out. If I can. If not, we got to go with a new carburetor. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to get a cutter, and I'm going to try to cut a slot in these and then see if I can use a regular screwdriver to pop them out. I'm going to do that off camera because I don't want to bore you with all that mess. And then we'll see if we can go from there. All right, so we're back to the old carburetor. I got the bolts out, the tamper-proof bolts. Basically what I did, I took a circle cutter like this and I cut across the bolt head. I put a little bit of groove in this bowl, but that won't hurt anything. And then I was able to use a screwdriver to take them out. I don't know if you can see that. You see where it's got the groove cut in it. And I got them out. Not a big deal. You could drill it out and use easy out. But you got to remember, we're talking about some really tiny bolts. And you'd have to hit that dead on ball center to get that out with an easy out. So anyway, that's out. I dug around in my junk and I found 2 screws that we can put in its place, which have Phillips heads, which I wish they would have done from the beginning, but they must sell these in California, and it's probably a law that you got to make these things tamper-proof, which is total bullshit in my mind, because I don't really think kids' ATVs are what's polluting the planet, but that's a story for another day. All right, so we got the float, needle, and seat out of the way. We got that taken off. There's a little rod that goes through and holds it on. It just pushes out. So we'll move that to the side. Here are the 2 jets, right here and here. This is your main jet. That's your slow jet. We're going to go ahead and take a screwdriver and pull these apart and see if we got some clogs. We'll take the slow jet out first. And I will usually hold this up to the light. Well, I held it up to the light and it's clogged big time. So we're going to have to unclog that. Let me pull out the other one. This is the main. Let's take a look. That one is actually clear. This one is plugged up solid. Okay. When I do these carburetors, I like to put down an old towel because it has little pieces, and if you drop something and it's just a hard bench, pume, you'll never see it again. So I use the towel and it keeps stuff from running away. I gotta get a ratchet. I'll be right back. All right, let's pull that out of there and take a look. This has tiny little holes on the side that we need to make sure get clear, and make sure the hole down through the center is clear. Okay, so what I will usually do, if you have compressed air, it's nice to use it to blow through the ports. If you don't have compressed air, get a can of carburetor cleaner, and you can use that to squirt in there, and you can usually tell if it's solid. I want to show you this. This is the choke. See how that little door comes down? That's what blocks off the air. And the funny thing about this choke, in the middle, there's like a little spring-loaded door. Can you see that? And that is for when you have the choke on and you throttle it up, the vacuum overcomes that spring on that door, and it opens that door to keep it from flooding the dog shit out of itself. Not a lot of carburetors have that. Cars have what's called a choke pull-off, and it's done by vacuum, but it's basically the same thing. All right, so let's get to trying to clear these out. All right, now, I know people have used all kinds of stuff over the years. I usually strip a wire, and I use the wire that's inside the wire. Just take out one of the strands, and usually that's enough to get these. You can poke around in there and get that cleared out. Sometimes it'll fight you, and you might have to soak it. I usually soak these, and you can use carburetor cleaner, but I usually use lacquer thinner. I do a lot of painting, so I got a lot of it laying around. Oh, look at that. It's gone all the way through. So we've got that cleared. Let me blow a little air through there, and be careful. When you blow air through it, you don't want to rocket this little thing across the shop. Let's take a look. Yeah, that's looking much better. Let's take another strand of wire and run it through there just to be sure. There we go. You can see I got it suspended on the wire, so we know it's clear now. Let me back this camera out because I think I'm doing some of the stuff out of frame, and I apologize. All right, so there's some little holes on the side. I want to poke this in to make sure they're clear. Okay, that one went through. That one went through. Okay. So we got that. You know this one's clear. This little guy, we're going to poke it through for good measures just to be sure. Okay, so we got our jets cleared. I mean, this carburetor is really clean. I'm not going to go crazy trying to clean it. I'm pretty sure I know what happened. I can smell the heavy amount of ethanol in this gasoline. And if you've got a four-wheeler at home, it's best that you do not run heavy ethanol gas in your four-wheeler. It's not good for these little carburetors. We got them in there. Okay. Let's go ahead and get our needle and seat in there. Well, it didn't work out as planned. Son of a bitch. All right, I got it in there. It helps to be young and be able to see and not be an old bastard like me. All right, so we make sure we got our gasket on there. That rod goes in there. Nothing holds it in except the shape of the bowl. It can't come out once the bowl's on. All right, so let's go ahead and put our bowl on. It only goes one way. Here are my new screws. I need to go grab a Phillips head screwdriver real quick. No, that's nice. All right. So the next guy that takes this apart can get the screws out. All right. Well, let's get it together and get it back on the bike and see how we did. Okay. We're in the middle of putting this back together. A couple things I want to mention. The cylinder slide that goes in this carburetor has a notch on one side, and down inside here is a pin. So you have to make sure you line those two up. Another thing is this is your gasket for the carburetor. I think it's called an insulator, but what you have to remember is what you need is an O-ring and a flat side, and an O-ring and a flat side. So this one has an O-ring. So you don't go O-ring to O-ring. You go flat side to O-ring, so that flat side fits on like that. Now that manifold down in there does not have an O-ring, so but this insulator does on this side, so make sure that goes towards that. All right. All right. We got a carburetor on, back on the ground. Let's see if we did any good. Let's take a look. All right, we got our fuel on. We got our choke on. Key on. Let's see what happens. Running with the choke off. Let's see. There you have it. She's ready to go. You ever watch the story like, you know, the Grinch saved Christmas? Well, the mechanic just saved Christmas. That would make a great children's book. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every single view and every single comment. YouTube is free, but every one of you pay with your time when you watch our videos. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great 2024.